You know, one of the most subtle, most dangerous things a woman can do in a relationship, and we don't talk about it enough, is lose herself. Not overnight, but slowly, quietly, almost like erosion. You start off standing strong, a whole person with dreams, values, and voice. But somewhere along the way, piece by piece, you start chipping away at yourself to accommodate someone else. And it never looks like self-betrayal at first. It looks like compromise. It looks like patience. It looks like love. But let me tell you, any relationship that demands your silence, your shrinking, your abandonment of self in order to survive, isn't a relationship. It's a slow death of your identity. There is this lie that's fed to women for generations that in order to keep a man, you must mold yourself to fit him. Be softer, quieter, more understanding. Say less, give more. Don't ask too many questions. Don't dream too loudly. Don't take up too much space. But what kind of love asks you to become invisible? The truth is, many women mistake attachment for connection. They cling to men because they want to be seen, to be chosen, to be kept. And in that desperate pursuit, they abandon themselves. But attachment rooted in fear. Fear of being alone, fear of not being enough. Fear of starting over is not the same as intimacy. That's not love. That's survival mode. And a woman in survival mode will always betray her own spirit. When you lose yourself in a man, you are essentially outsourcing your worth. You hand it over to someone else and say, you define me. You decide if I'm valuable. You tell me who I am. And the danger in that is, the moment that man walks away or stops affirming you, your sense of identity collapses. You don't know who you are without his gaze, his validation, his presence. That is not love. That is dependency dressed up as devotion. And I get it. I really do. Some of us were taught that sacrifice is what makes us good women. We watched our mothers give up their peace to keep their homes. We watched our aunties pray through pain instead of confronting it. We saw women disappear into roles, wife, mother, supporter, and call it loyalty. So we grew up believing that self-erasure was the price of intimacy. But just because something is common doesn't make it healthy. Just because it's tradition doesn't make it truth. A healthy relationship doesn't require you to diminish yourself. It challenges you to grow, yes, but in alignment with your purpose, not in opposition to it. The right man will not be threatened by your strength, your brilliance, or your boundaries. He will not need you to shrink so he can feel tall. If you have to become less of yourself to keep him, then he was never truly yours to begin with. You must remember that you are not just someone's partner. You are a whole ecosystem of thoughts, desires, talents, and callings. You are not just built to support someone else's story. You are the author of your own. The moment you start silencing your voice, shelving your dreams, or editing your personality to be more palatable to him, you are not loving him. You are abandoning you. Losing yourself is rarely a decision you make once. It's 1,000 little choices, not speaking up when something bothers you, canceling your plans because he had a bad day, hiding your successes so he doesn't feel small. And one day you wake up wondering how you got so far from the woman you used to be. That realization is both painful and sacred because it's the moment you get to decide to come back home to yourself. Let me say this clearly. A man should be a chapter in your story, not the title. You were not created to orbit around anyone's world. You are not a satellite, you are the sun. And anything that causes you to dim your light isn't love, it's control. And we are not submitting to control in the name of companionship anymore. So if you've been fading into someone else's shadow, I'm here to tell you, you can stop. You can return to yourself. You can reclaim the parts of you that were buried under someone else's comfort. You can choose to be whole, even if it means being alone for a season. Because the woman who refuses to lose herself in a man is the woman who will never truly be lost again. Let's talk about something that too many women have normalized, spiritualized, or simply endured in disrespect. Not always the loud, obvious kind that comes with yelling or cursing or doors slammed in anger. Sometimes disrespect wears a quiet disguise. It looks like dismissiveness. It sounds like sarcasm. It feels like emotional distance or being consistently overlooked, unheard, or unseen. It's subtle, but don't be fooled. Disrespect in any form is a seed, and what you tolerate will eventually grow roots in your life. We have to stop mistaking endurance for emotional strength. I see too many women carrying relationships on their backs, calling it faith, calling it loyalty, when really it's just them settling for less than they deserve. We think if we hold on long enough, if we pray hard enough, if we're patient enough, maybe he'll change. But here's what I've learning: love does not require you to suffer. Honor is not something you have to earn, and respect is not a reward. It's the bare minimum. Disrespect is not always cruel, but it is always costly. It chips away at your self-worth. It makes you second guess your instincts. It conditions you to shrink. And the most dangerous part is, it happens so slowly you might not even notice it. Until one day, you realize you've accepted behavior you once would have called unacceptable. That's not growth, that's erosion. Let me be very clear, emotional neglect is disrespect. When he consistently ignores your needs, your feelings, your voice, it's not just that he's busy or tired or not good at communication. It's that he's choosing not to show up for you in the way a healthy relationship requires. And that choice has weight. When a man tells you who he is through his actions, believe him the first time. You don't need to keep writing chapters in a book that already told you how it ends. And I know the fear of being alone is real. We start telling ourselves things like, at least he's not cheating, or at least he comes home at night, or every relationship has problems. And yes, no one is perfect, but there is a vast difference between imperfection and emotional disregard. The former is human, the latter is harmful. Philosophically, respect is rooted in recognition, the ability to see and acknowledge the dignity of another person. When a man truly respects you, he doesn't just love how you look or what you do for him. He recognizes your essence. He sees you as a full autonomous being with your own mind, needs, and dreams. Anything less than that is not respect. It's convenience. And you were not created to be someone's convenient option. I want to challenge you to examine the space you occupy in your relationship. Are you constantly explaining your worth? Are you begging for consistency? Are you defending your boundaries only to have them ignored? If so, you're not in a relationship, you're in a performance. And performances are exhausting. Sooner or later, you'll burn out. Here's the deeper issue when you tolerate disrespect. It's often because a part of you has started to believe you deserve it. Maybe not on the surface. Maybe you say all the right affirmations and post all the self-love quotes. But somewhere deep inside, you're still operating from a belief that your needs are too much, your voice is too loud, or your presence is too demanding. And that belief is what you need to confront. Because the problem isn't just how he treats you. It's what you've come to accept as normal. Disrespect teaches you to apologize for your existence. And the longer you stay in that dynamic, the more your sense of identity becomes wrapped in someone else's inability to value you. But you don't have to stay there. You don't have to make excuses for behavior that breaks your spirit. You don't have to carry the emotional burden of someone who won't meet you with the same effort. Respect is not a luxury. It's not something you wait around for. It's a standard. And if a man cannot meet that standard, it's not your job to lower it. It's your responsibility to walk away. Because every time you choose to stay in a space where you are not honored, you're telling the world how to treat you. And I need you to hear this with your whole heart. The love that requires your silence is not love. The relationship that requires your suffering is not sacred. And the man who consistently disrespects you is not your assignment. He is your lesson. Choose to graduate. One of the most disheartening places a woman can find herself in is in a relationship where she's doing all the emotional heavy lifting, where she's showing up fully, consistently, with intention. And he's just there, present in body but not in spirit, offering just enough to keep things afloat but never enough to make her feel secure. When we don't talk enough about the emotional exhaustion that comes from pouring into someone who refuses to meet you halfway. We live in a culture that still subtly romanticizes a woman's suffering. We praise her for being ride or die, for sticking through hard times, for being the one who held everything together when he couldn't. But let's be honesting, a relationship where only one person is doing the work is not a relationship. It's emotional labor disguised as love. And love should never feel like a full-time job with no pay, no benefits, and no rest. You are not a rehabilitation center for broken men. You are not a therapist, a life coach, or an emotional punching bag. And if the foundation of your relationship is you always being the understanding one, the forgiving one, the patient one, then you're not in partnership. You're in a one-sided transaction. And a transaction where only one party keeps giving is a form of self-abandonment. Real love, healthy love, is mutual. It's reciprocal. It moves in both directions. Not perfectly, not symmetrically, but with intention and effort from both sides. When a man truly values you, he doesn't leave you guessing. He doesn't make you chase clarity or settle for crumbs. He shows up, not just in words, but in action. Not just when it's convenient, but consistently. Because he understands that love without effort is just sentiment. What's dangerous is that many women were conditioned to believe that their love has to fix a man to prove its value. That they must be long-suffering to be seen as worthy. That the more they sacrifice, the more deserving they become. But that's not love. That's martyrdom. And martyrdom in a relationship will always leave you depleted, bitter, and resentful. Let's talk psychology for a moment. When you're always the one initiating emotional connection, offering forgiveness, making plans, and holding space, your brain begins to normalize that imbalance. You start to associate love with anxiety, effort, and inconsistency. You begin to believe that unless love is hard, it isn't real. That if you're not working overtime to earn it, it must not be valuable. That's a lie. And it's a lie that keeps far too many women trapped in cycles where their effort is never matched. And the truth is, you can't keep building a future with someone who's still unsure about showing up in the present. You can't keep carrying a relationship that weighs more than it gives. And yet, many women stay, not because they're weak, but because they've confused potential with partnership. They see who he could be, not who he is. They love his promise, not his patterns. But potential does not pay emotional dividends. You can't live off of what someone might become. And you should never have to trade your peace for the possibility that one day he might finally rise to meet you. Because let's be clear, waiting for someone to evolve while you slowly shrink is not noble. It's dangerous. And it sets a precedent for how you allow yourself to be loved. If you find yourself constantly giving more than you're receiving, more time, more energy, more grace, more apologies, it's time to pause, not just to assess him, but to assess you. What part of you still believes you have to overfunction to be chosen? What unhealed narrative is telling you that your value is tied to what you can offer instead of who you are? You don't have to prove you're worthy by doing the most. The right relationship will never require you to wear yourself out to keep it alive. Love is not supposed to feel like a burden. And effort, when it's real, is not a one-woman show. So if you're in a relationship where you're always the one pushing, planning, and pulling, maybe it's not love. Maybe it's labor, and you were not created to be exhausted by the very thing that's supposed to bring you peace. You deserve a relationship that feels like partnership, not performance. Let that be the standard. One of the most powerful tools a woman possesses is her intuition. This deep, almost instinctual knowing that whispers truths your mind hasn't yet fully processed. And yet, so many women learn early on to silence it. We're told to be reasonable, to give him the benefit of the doubt, to not jump to conclusions. But what if that inner voice, that gut feeling, is your soul's way of protecting you? What if ignoring it is like ignoring the warning lights on your dashboard, driving you closer to danger without realizing it? We live in a world that prizes logic and reason above all else. We're conditioned to trust what we can see, touch, or measure. But relationships don't always fit neatly into that framework. They're messy, emotional, and sometimes the signs aren't obvious. So your intuition becomes a kind of internal radar, picking up on frequencies your conscious mind might miss. That feeling of unease when his words don't match his actions. The subtle way he dismisses your concerns. The hesitation in his eyes when you ask a simple question. These aren't just random thoughts. They're signals. But here's the catch. Society often trains women to doubt their own perceptions, especially in matters of the heart. You might be told you're too sensitive, overthinking, or making a mountain out of a molehill. Over time, that kind of invalidation erodes trust in your own judgment. You start to second guess yourself, to rationalize behavior that's unhealthy, and to stay in situations longer than you should because you're confused about what you really feel. Ignoring your intuition doesn't keep you stuck in bad relationships. It's a betrayal of your own wisdom. Psychologically, that voice is an integration of your past experiences, your values, and your subconscious assessment of safety and respect. When you silence it, you disconnect from an essential part of yourself. You lose alignment with your core, and the result is emotional turmoil and confusion. Philosophically, this is a question of trust. Trusting others is important, yes, but it begins with trusting yourself. If you can't believe your own inner truth, how will you ever set boundaries that protect your heart? How will you ever demand the respect and love you deserve? How will you navigate the complexities of a relationship without a reliable compass? The danger is that ignoring red flags, even small ones, allows a pattern to form. What might start as subtle dismissals or inconsistencies can grow into bigger breaches of trust, disrespect, or even emotional harm. Every time you silence your concerns to keep the peace, you teach your partner what's acceptable and what's not. And the space you give to doubts can widen into chasms that are hard to bridge. But trusting your intuition doesn't mean you have to act impulsively or make snap judgments. It means honoring what you feel, reflecting on it, and allowing it to inform your decisions. It means creating a dialogue between your heart and your mind, not silencing one for the sake of the other. If you've ever felt that niggling doubt in a relationship, don't dismiss it. Sit with it. Ask yourself, what is this feeling trying to tell me? What patterns am I seeing? What boundaries am I ignoring? The answers are often right there, waiting for you to acknowledge them. And here's something vital to understand: intuition is a form of self-respect. It's a declaration that you will not settle for less than what is true and right for you. It's the courage to say, I deserve to feel safe, valued, and understood. When you honor your inner voice, you create a space where authentic love can thrive. Love that doesn't require you to question your worth or silence your fears. So many women live with the burden of regret because they ignored their intuition, hoping love would change or that things would get better. But real change begins with listening to yourself first. You owe it to your future self to trust those early warnings. Because when you do, you protect your heart from unnecessary pain and you open the door to relationships that reflect your true value. At the end of the day, your intuition is a sacred guide. It's the quiet, unwavering voice that knows what's best for you even when the world is shouting otherwise. And when you choose to listen, you choose freedom, the freedom to walk away from what doesn't serve you, and the freedom to step boldly into the love you deserve. Remember this. Your intuition is not a weakness. It is your power. Trust it. Honor it. Let it lead you home.